3 big lies that are told when planning weddings. Hi, I'm Kim, the hostess with the mostest, and I come from a long line of party planning people. I planned my first event on the playground for a friend who was moving away in elementary school. Yes, elementary school. Well, since then, I've gone from planning juice box parties to over-the-top orchestrated events for many clients. So, what do I help them do? I help them take the chaos out of wedding planning. And that's what I'm going to do for you. So if you're new to my channel, make sure that you like, subscribe, and follow us for more DIY planning tips. And make sure to click the links in the bio so that you can get those free DIY wedding tip sheets that will help you plan your wedding. So let's get into the 3 big lies that are told when planning weddings. Let's address the first one, which is you have to go to the most expensive venue. Now, sometimes it may make sense depending on how many guests you have and what type of budget you have. So if you're one of those people who's blessed and lucky to have an over-the-top budget where money is not an issue, then going to an expensive venue may be the best option. But there are pros and cons to that. Some of the most expensive venues have a lot of hidden costs, such as things you don't think about. And I hear a lot of couples talk about, oh, it's just $75 a head, or it's just $100 a head, and I can do that, 100 guests. Oh, I can swing that. But there's a lot of hidden costs. Do you have to have insurance, the gratuities, all the service charges? And then let's say you pick that price at $100 a head. Let's just use for an example. But then you see the menu options and the bar options. You're like, wow, I don't like that one. And then you look at the other options and realize now you're in the $120 or $130 or $150. So if you have a budget that is restrictive. Now let me address budget. A lot of people get offended when you start talking about budget. Let's be clear. Budgets are budgets. You know, we all don't have the same budgets. I don't have the same budget as Oprah, but it's still a budget. You don't have the same budget as Jeff Bezos, but it's still a budget, right? But it's expensive. Weddings are expensive. Once you manage your expectations and realize that weddings are expensive, then you can start having true conversations. So whether you're going to hire a planner or you're going to do it yourself, the first thing to do is be honest about how much you're working with. And we have other videos that help you determine what your budget should be. But going to the most expensive venue is probably one of the first things you should not do. I would first make my guest list so I know how many people I'm eliminating. I would divide the guest list into 2. The first list would be the people who must be there, like immediate family, you know, that's parents, grandparents, siblings. Those people would be first. And then I would have list B, which would be associates, friends, maybe co-workers. But I have a whole nother video on that, child. But anywho, at the end of the day, that's the first thing. Then you need to look at the venues. You want to do venue comparison. You don't want to go to the very first venue that you see. Because again, there are a lot of questions you need to know, such as what's included in the cost, are there separate gratuities, what is the time frame, how many hours am I given, what menu options, is it one set menu or is it tiered menu options, because that's going to cost you more money. Is the bar open bar? Are you charging by consumption, or do you charge a flat fee per head for the bar? You know, all those things matter. What can I bring in? What can I not bring in? Do I need to carry insurance for the day of my wedding? Do my vendors need to have insurance? All of those things matter when choosing your venue. So sometimes going to the most expensive is not always the best option, because it may cost you more than you thought you wanted to spend. And even though you had a budget, everyone has a budget. It just means that's where you want to stay and that is what you are willing to spend. It doesn't mean you're broke. It doesn't mean all those things. So manage your expectations. Now, there are other options when looking at venues. Like one, if your budget is restrictive, going to an all-inclusive venue is probably one of the best options because you really don't have to bring in anything. They offer you everything in one price. You just got to make sure there's no other hidden gratuities. You literally walk in with your bouquets and flowers and your cake and maybe a couple of vendors like photographer, videographer, a photo booth, maybe. But everything else is included. So you're not having to come out of pocket and spend additional costs. They even offer some simple decorations as maybe candles on the table or silk arrangements of that sort. So you want to look at that. But if your budget is really, really restrictive with clients who are wanting something like a low-key wedding, they don't want to have a huge guest list, I would say go to restaurants. There are a lot of small restaurants where you can have an intimate wedding. If they have a courtyard, you can get married in a courtyard and then go into the private room and have one long table, a couple of tables, some simple centerpieces, have a great cake area, you know, put some focal points in a room, a little picture area, a cake area, and keep the budget friendly. You can also get married outside at a park, or if someone has a nice home in their yard. Those are a lot of options when you just cannot afford to go to a venue. And you can always celebrate later when you make 10 years, 15 or 20 years. So don't get caught up in going to the most expensive venue. And we have other videos where we break down the venue costs. But also check the link in our bio. We have a great venue comparison sheet where you can actually line up side by side the questions that you should ask before signing a contract for each venue. Then you can look at that sheet later that I've created from many years of doing this. You can look at that sheet and say, you know what, this venue makes the most sense. You know, here are the amenities and things they offer. Here's the look I'm wanting on the day of my wedding. Here are the options they give me for my money. Does this maximize my budget? If I have to bring in additional vendors or resources or amenities, how much is that gonna cost me? So that venue comparison sheet that we do is excellent for helping you ask those questions before you sign the contract. Also too, if you're deciding, you know, hey, I wanna be a DIY bride, or I think I may want to hire a planner, we also have a sheet where you can ask questions from your planner, because one of the things you want to do is look at all options before contracts are signed, because once they're signed, now you're in deep. Now you have to pay these invoices, and you signed on the line without thinking thoroughly about asking the right questions. So if you have planners out there like myself who have consultations available, you should book them, even if it's a cost, because that cost is nothing compared to signing contracts with the wrong venue and not really thinking about all the costs, all the logistics associated with going with the venue. So biggest lie is going to the most expensive venue because it's pretty, it's popular, doesn't always make the most sense. So make sure that you're doing your homework and comparing venues and asking all the questions and looking at alternative venues before you book the wrong venue. And now you don't get to have your dream wedding. Now you're stressed and you're overwhelmed because you didn't do the homework. So that's my stance on that. So the next biggest lie is that you have to invite everyone. So I hear a lot of couples say, well, I don't know how to do that. What should I do? And I just mentioned, you know, creating 2 different guest lists. So when you're planning your wedding, you should never, ever have the expectation that you have to invite everyone. Never, ever put that stress on yourself, because why? You don't have to. Co-workers, associates, those type of people should never be at the top of your list. I'm sorry, they shouldn't. I'm not saying you can't invite a coworker, but if you have lunch with this person and you talk to them all the time, maybe they should be included. But if it's somebody you only talk to at work, you don't communicate on weekends, you would never consider them a confidant, and if you left the job, you wouldn't be upset by not talking to them, they probably should not be on your guest list. I'm gonna just tell you that. If you have to go look up someone, meaning you have to call another person, get another person to get their phone number, why are you inviting them? Is it because you want them to see? I mean, like, what is the reason for that? So having this big, enormous guest list, that is the biggest way to cut your budget. Whether you have unlimited funds or you have to really be restrictive with your budget. Having an enormous guest list is one of the worst things I see couples do all the time. Well, I have to invite this person. If I don't invite this person, look, blame it on the economy, blame it on something, but don't overwhelm yourself by doing that. Blame it on your planner, blame it on your family members. Look, tell people you want an intimate wedding. And intimate is different to different people. Intimate could be 5 people, it could be 20 people, but 300 people is not intimate, okay? So you have got to cut those guest lists. That's the biggest thing that is blowing your wedding budget. So stop it. You're killing yourself. And it's not necessary. Some people don't even expect to be invited. Coworkers should not expect that. If they're called a coworker, they're not your friend. So limit the amount of people in your wedding party, because you don't want a choir standing up there with you, because that's another hidden cost, because you have to invite them plus their immediate family or their parent or their spouse or significant other. It's just not worth it. So you do not have to invite everyone. That is a myth. Oh, I got to invite this one from the church, or this one that I go to yoga with, or this one I do Pilates with, or our kids have been friends since then. I'm sorry. Blame it on something, but do not overextend yourself by having an outrageous guest list. That is the second biggest lie, and really it could be the first that will blow your budget, is your guest list. And that's the first thing you should do even before you book a venue, is create your guest list so you know how many people you're working with. Also, if you click the links in our bio, we have a great algorithm that shows you how to eliminate off your guest list. If you have to do this, probably should not invite that person. If you have to do that, probably should not invite them. So it's a great fun algorithm. Go ahead, make sure to download that, and that will help you determine and eliminate all the drama associated with reducing your guest list. Now let's talk about the third biggest lie that could be tearing up your budget. That is DIY. Is DIY better? Absolutely not. DIY is not better. DIY is not better. And here's why. Because doing it yourself sometimes is okay. If you're making favors, not a big deal. But some things just aren't worth it. I tell couples who eloping, who call me and we have a consultation, look, one of the things you don't want to sacrifice is photography. I'm not saying you have to have Hollywood grade photography, but you can't recapture and get those moments back. So if you want to spend a little bit and splurge a little bit, that's an area that you do want to keep. So having your friend or family member do the photography, I don't always think that's the best option, because in the long run, couples sometimes do that and they never, ever make a book or share their pictures because they hated them. And so having bigger is not always better. Having a huge wedding is not always better. Hiring the most expensive photographer is not always better. But DIY on certain things like photography is just not an area I would like to go. Now, if you have a friend who's great and takes great pictures, so be it. But again, when you deal with friends, if you're not paying them, they just hand it to you without any editing, or they don't take the time to really get into all the details. So maybe use your friend for a shower or something like that. So DIY is great for invitations. DIY is great for favors. You know, if you're great at sewing and you can create a beautiful gown, sometimes it's not cheaper to make your dress. A lot of these dress online boutiques right now, it's cheaper sometimes just to buy a dress or buy it on consignment or rent a dress than it is to try to make a dress, because by the time you buy the materials, was it cheaper? Also with decorations, people think, oh, I'm gonna go buy all these candles, I'm gonna go buy all of these linens, I'm gonna go buy all of this stuff, and then on day of wedding, your friends and family are like, I'm not helping you with that. Who's gonna set that up? And now you got all these candles, where you gonna put them, how you gonna get them there, and who's gonna pack them up at the end of the night? Not always a better option. Number two, you decide, oh, you know what? I'm gonna do the catering myself. Who's gonna refill everything? Who's gonna clean it up? Who's gonna set it up? Who's gonna serve it? You know, that's not always cheaper, especially if you're inviting a lot of people. So you have to think about that. Sometimes hiring a caterer is a lot cheaper than standing up for hours and hours, and now you're exhausted and you didn't get to enjoy your wedding day. So it's not always cheaper to DIY. Now, invitations, like I said, is something. You can do a digital invite. Since COVID, many couples have elected to do a digital invite, create a wedding website where guests can go and RSVP. People are okay with that, and maybe you can print a few invitations for grandparents or older people who really want a physical invitation or who are not really tech savvy. But I don't think always DIY is the best option. Flowers, if you're good at it, you know, sometimes by the time you buy the flowers and everything to create the flowers, it is easier to go maybe to a grocery store versus a florist. You know, you can get a couple of bouquets made, or go to a grower that has an on-site florist that can put that together, or keep a simpler flower. You know, silks are okay. We have a whole nother video where we talk about silks versus fresh, but you know, DIY isn't always cheaper. It isn't always the best option when planning a wedding. So photography, don't shoot yourself in the foot with that. You know, be very careful about DIY in certain things. And decor, of course, is a huge one. Even if you're savvy, even if you're good with decorating and socializing with friends, on the day of your wedding, you should be a couple, you should be a bride, you should have fun. And that is one of the least things you want to do. And if your budget allows for it, go to an all-inclusive venue that offers more amenities so you don't have to bring in as much. And if you're doing an elopement or something small, then DIY probably is the best option. Or if you're doing something in your home or in a yard, DIY may be a good option because you have time to set up and do that, and it's your home, and when it's over, you can just retreat to your bedroom. So just think about those type of things when you're thinking about DIY. It's not always the best option. Doing it yourself is not always the best option. It may be the best option, but it's not always the best option. So compare and contrast price, logistics. Does this make sense? Time, what will be the end result? Will I be satisfied? Was it worth it? You know, those are things, because you cannot get the day back, and you do want something pretty, you do want something beautiful, but it should make sense, because again, you're the couple, you're the bride. So again, make sure you're making the best decision before you do it yourself. It's not always cheaper. It actually costs you more sometimes when you buy all that stuff. Now you got to put it up and sell it or deal with it. So be smart about it. So again, I hope you've enjoyed this video. We have many more tips and things to share. And like I said, I've been doing this for many years, so I love to help couples. I love to walk them through the things that they just don't think about, and they jump off the cliff a lot of times, making some of the wrong decisions by hiring the wrong vendors, booking the wrong venue, signing contracts without thinking about all the backside of it, the finances of it. So make sure you're making the best decisions, and that's what we're here to do at Girl You Can Plan It. So make sure to go follow me on YouTube, on all social media platforms, and make sure to like, share. And if you enjoyed this video, please like below and comment. And also don't forget to click the links where we have our books and workbooks and tip sheets that are very, very easy and check off lists to help you in the planning process. Whether you're doing it yourself or hiring someone else, just remember, girl, you can plan it. See you next time. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe at YouTube at Girl You Can Plan It. See you next time.